The film begins by showing a retired secret agent named Robert Collins, who is currently enjoying his life as an employee at a building materials store. Robert is a cool person despite his old age, and he is well liked and respected by his colleagues. One of his closest friends is a chubby guy named Rafi. Coincidentally, Rafi is currently undergoing a diet program to qualify for a security guard test. As a good friend, Robert suggests that Rafi should diet and stop consuming high-fat foods. After work, Robert heads home, where he does everything on his own. In the evening, before going to bed, Robert has a habit of taking the time to read a book. However, he faces a challenge in his life: insomnia. Unable to sleep, he decides to go to his favorite cafe with his own tea in hand. There, he meets a woman named Tari. It seems like they have met at the cafe before, but they haven't formally introduced themselves. The next morning, Robert continues his routine activities as usual. In the evening, Robert meets Tari again. They then chat about the book Robert is reading. Shortly after, Tari receives a call from someone named Slavy. As it turns out, Slavy is a Russian mafia involved in the trafficking of women's services. Slavy is Tari's employer, hiring her as an entertainer for wealthy clients. At that moment, Slavy arrives to pick up Tari to serve one of his guests. However, Tari refuses to attend to the guest because he is too brutal. Slavy threatens to beat Tari if she doesn't comply with his orders. Reluctantly, Tari obeys Slavy's command. Robert, understanding the situation, remains silent and observes. The next morning, Robert is seen accompanying Rafi again during his weight loss training to help him pass the selection to become a security guard. In the evening, Robert returned to his regular cafe and saw Tari already there lying down listening to music. Then Robert gave Tari a piece of bread and they started to get to know each other and talk to each other. Tari said that she actually really wanted to be a singer. She also gave Robert a cassette containing her recordings. Then they left the cafe to look for the evening breeze, but in the middle, suddenly there was a car blocking him. It turned out that it was Slavy who was going to pick up Tari. At that moment, without further ado, Slavy hit Tari because it turned out that Tari had disappointed his customers last night. There Robert could only remain silent and began to be suspicious of Slavy. Then Slavy approached Robert and gave him a business card if one day Robert needed a woman to entertain him. Since what happened that night, Robert seemed worried about Dance's condition, because Dance had not been seen in the cafe for several days. Then a cafe owner named Shamsul said that currently Dance was in hospital because someone had beaten him. After being told by Shamsul, Robert immediately went to visit Tari, and sure enough, when he arrived at the hospital, Robert saw Tari lying helpless with her face covered in wounds. There was a friend named Martha who was there. She told Robert that Tari had been beaten by Slavy for not obeying his rules as a night butterfly woman. After receiving information from Martha, Robert looked restless and uneasy in carrying out his activities. He was also very worried about the state of Dance, which made him keep thinking, should he act to uphold justice, or just keep quiet? Slavy was seen getting out of his luxury car and immediately getting in. His office is all luxurious. Not long after that, Robert came to see Slavy in his room, and it was clear that this made Slavy and his subordinates very surprised because Robert, who was a stranger to him, could suddenly just walk into his room. It turns out that the purpose of Robert's visit to meet Slavy was to give him an envelope to pay off all of Tari's debts to Slavy so that Tari could stop being a night butterfly woman. But Robert's offer was immediately rejected outright. He could get more money than that if he went back to work. Then Robert took the envelope and walked away from Slavy. But when Robert was about to leave, he locked the door and looked at every weapon held by Slavies. After Robert massacred everyone there, Robert prayed and apologized for his actions. Then he went home to clean up the blood on his body, after which Robert immediately fell asleep soundly. The next morning Robert was seen carrying out work activities as usual and as if nothing happened.
Mr. McCall, it's lunchtime.
The next morning Robert was seen carrying out work activities as usual and as if nothing happened. At night a man was seen getting off a private jet, this man named Teddy. Teddy is Pushkin's confidant and Pushkin himself is a big mafia boss from Russia who is Slavy's boss. Pushkin told Teddy to investigate the case that caused Slavy's death. Pushkin suspected that the murder occurred because of business competition between the mafia and the next day when Robert arrived at work he didn't see Rappy at work and one of Rappy's friends said that Rappy had resigned because he was worried. Robert then went to meet Rappy at his mother's restaurant, but when he arrived at the restaurant, Robert saw that his mother's restaurant, Rappy, was in disarray because of a fire, which made Rappy have to stop working to help his mother. As a good friend, Robert offered to help clean up the restaurant, makes it neat and a little quiet. On the other hand, Teddy was invited by his friend Frank to meet the Irish mafia at his workplace. His name was John. There John said that he didn't want to get involved in this matter because John didn't want to admit it. Without further ado, Teddy taught John with an ashtray. The next day Robert began to investigate the cause of the fire. Robert found evidence that the fire had occurred due to the actions of two corrupt policemen. The two policemen asked Mrs. Raffi to force them on the grounds of security money. But after the policemen were about to leave, they were suddenly confronted by Robert. Robert immediately taught the two policemen a lesson. Then Robert asked that the money they had stolen be immediately returned to the owner, because if not Robert threatened to distribute CCTV video footage of evidence of their crime. Teddy met Martha at her apartment. Teddy interrogated her about Slavy's death because she received threats there. Martha said that Tari was currently in the hospital where a man had met her and he also asked about Slavy. After Teddy received the information from Martha, Teddy unexpectedly killed him by strangling him to death. After that, Teddy met the corrupt police and gave him a photo of Robert which was caught on CCTV. He asked the corrupt police to investigate how Robert was because according to Teddy, Robert was not just anyone. In another place, Robert and his friends are seen playing baseball. Also, Raffi is spotted wearing a security guard uniform there. Raffi is very happy because he has passed the test to become a security guard. One day, while Robert is at work, a robbery occurs in a store committed by a young man. The robber demands some money and the ring belonging to Robert's friend, who happens to be the cashier. Robert prepares to confront the robber, but he cancels his plan after seeing that the robber is armed and there is a child nearby. After the robber leaves, Robert memorizes his car's license plate. He then grabs a hammer and immediately searches for the robber to teach him a lesson and return the money and ring to his friend. In the evening, when Robert was relaxing at home, he was visited by Teddy, disguised as a detective. Teddy asked several things about Slavy and dance. He also showed a photo of Martha's death which he had engineered to fall down the stairs there. Robert casually answered all of Teddy's questions, as if he was not involved in the case. Teddy, who was still curious about Robert, was there. Teddy ordered his men to look for information about Robert and look at his civil records. But the existing civil records explained that Robert was just an ordinary civilian. That evening, when Robert was drinking at his regular cafe, he saw visitors dressed as officers, who were Teddy's men who had been told by Teddy to go undercover and spy on Robert, but Robert could see through his disguised action. Tattoo on his hand. After successfully paralyzing Teddy's child, Robert left there and it turned out that Teddy and Frank had been there to spy on Robert. Then Teddy immediately followed Robert, who went home. When he arrived at Robert's house, Teddy finds medicine for drunkenness and Robert's purchase of plane tickets, making Teddy think as if Robert has run away from his house, but actually Robert is hiding in his house and watching Teddy from CCTV. The next day, Robert was seen leaving the city of Boston. It turned out he was meeting an old friend named Susan. Susan is a secret agent for the American government. Robert's purpose in coming to meet Susan was to ask for Susan's help and find out about Teddy's background from various sources that Susan had obtained. He explained to Robert that Teddy is a former Marine who is now working to the big mafia from Russia, namely Pushkin, because he felt he had dealings with them. Robert asked Susan for permission to end all the problems. Then, when he arrived in Boston, Robert went to a corrupt police officer named Frank, where Robert ambushed Frank and trapped him in a car that he had installed with a smoke exhauster. Robert forced Frank to tell him about the Pushkin because if he didn't confess, Frank would die in the car and finally Frank also provided information and took Robert to a warehouse where Pushkin's business money was stored. And distributed the money to the employees there. Then Robert handcuffed Frank. Frank was also told to call the police to immediately follow up on this case. After Robert left, the police arrived to arrest Frank and the gangsters in the warehouse. In the evening, Teddy was seen having dinner with a bespectacled assassin. Then the assassin asked permission to go to the toilet to urinate. Not long after, Robert suddenly appeared in front of Teddy carrying the assassin's broken glasses. Robert had killed a man. It was in the toilet that Robert threatened Teddy and explained that Pushkin should immediately close down his operations tonight, or Robert would destroy all of Pushkin's businesses and kill him, including Teddy. Robert entered Pushkin's house, then Robert opened the flash disk and found all of Pushkin's crimes, including the flow of illegal funds and photos of women trafficking. Then Robert sent the photos to the FBI. Robert then found the ship, owned by Pushkin, and immediately blew up Pushkin's illegal oil storage ship. This was a sign from him to start a war against Pushkin, and it was true that Pushkin saw that. He was very angry and told Teddy to immediately finish off Robert. Teddy then prepared his best troops to hunt down Robert and make him his friends as hostages. Then he called Robert and threatened to kill his friends if Robert didn't come to see him. Robert rushed there and started his war with Teddy after killing Teddy's men. Then Robert asked Rafi to free all his friends and told him to leave through the back door. But not long after, Teddy and his other men come there, and this is where we will see the brutality. Robert. But when he wanted to kill Teddy's big man, he had difficulty, but in the end Robert was able to kill the man even though his hand was injured. But when Rafi was about to run away with Robert, but unfortunately, Teddy shot Rafi in the leg. Then Robert told Rafi to turn on the light to divert Teddy's attention. When he was about to press the switch there, Teddy found Rafi and was about to kill him. But suddenly Robert immediately killed Teddy using a nail gun. 3 days later, Robert went to Moscow, where Robert went to Pushkin's house. Robert was able to easily break into Pushkin's house when Pushkin wanted to take a shower. Suddenly Robert was in his room. Then Robert killed him in a very cruel way. At the end of the dance film, when he has recovered from his illness, he meets Robert, who has just come out of the dance mini market to thank Robert for his services in helping him.